Good morning, and here we are in Boca Raton. My name is Kenny Polcari, and I am your host of the party for today's morning market commentary. So what is it today that we need to know, right? What happened yesterday? What's going on today? Well, yesterday the markets churned a bit higher, right? Electric vehicles are stealing the spotlight, and they are stealing investor dollars. The dollar continues to rally, putting pressure on commodities. Think oil. And there's lots of chatter in DC, nominees and spending, and what's it all going to mean for your investment portfolio? And what are we serving with Thanksgiving dinner? We're having the classic mash. It's just another Thanksgiving must-have, but we'll get to that in a minute. So yesterday, the Dow continued to come under some pressure while the S&P, the Nasdaq, the Russell, and the transports all staged a little bit of a rebound. Nothing really dramatic, but investors did appear, at least yesterday, to shake off Wednesday's concerns and market weakness that were driven by the much higher consumer price index report on Wednesday. The report showed that while wages are rising at 4.9%, inflation is running at 6.2%, leaving workers with a 1.3% deficit as they struggle to keep up with rising prices. Basic materials, tech, and retail all led the way higher yesterday, rising 0.8, 0.5, and 1.2% respectively, while money came out of utilities, industrials, and consumer discretionary. The Treasury markets were closed yesterday in observance of Veterans Day, so there wasn't any action in the bond market to offer any direction at all to equities. And really, neither was there much economic data yesterday either. So it was all relatively quiet, right? Volumes were down, partly because of the holiday. Overall, there were just a couple of stories that dominated the airwaves yesterday. So what were they? Certainly, it was the inflation story was front and center. That was top of the agenda, as per the CPI report on Wednesday. Everyone opining on what the 6.2% read really means. I mean, remember, the estimate was for 5.8%, which was already high. So a 6.2% read, while higher, wasn't that dramatic, right? At some point, the market is semi-prepared for a high number to begin with. It wasn't like we were looking for a 2% number and then we got a 6.2% number, because if we did, the market would have been the reaction would have been different. So the idea that CPI was strong did not cause investors to panic, but it is causing everyone to consider what it means for stocks, investing, portfolio management, and more importantly, Fed policy. And then there's the EV story, right? The electric vehicle story. Tesla, which has been under pressure since Monday, down more than 20% in 4 days as the media tried to make sense of Lonnie's recent $5 billion sale. As if the media needs to make sense of it. What difference does it really make to the long-term investor? He made a sale to pay tax obligations. He still has $200 billion more of Tesla stock and money. So is it really an investor story, or was it just a human interest story counting his money? Next up is Rivian, RIVN, the latest electric vehicle IPO that came on Wednesday, is viewed as a direct competitor to Tesla. It was priced at $78 a share. It opened at $106. It closed at $100. Yesterday, the excitement continued as investors continue to take money out of Tesla along with other names and reallocate to Rivian, sending that stock up another $22 to end the day at $123. It's all very exciting, leaving CEO RJ Scaringia, newest American billionaire, and that's just another human interest story. Although Rivian is also a hot IPO investment story as well, and I support the EV space, but I do think that this initial reaction to this listing is a bit overdone. The 2-day action gives the market gives this stock a valuation of $108 billion, well ahead of GM at $85 and Ford at $80 billion. And while they're expected to post a $1.3 billion loss this quarter, remember though, it's a growth stock, so losses are perceived to be good news. And finally, there's Lucid Motors, LCID, another electric vehicle name that is also benefiting from all the excitement, rising more than 100% in the past 2 weeks, as electric vehicle technology appears to be the name of the game, at least this week. But look, not for anything. Have you seen the newest electric Audi RS e-tron by Volkswagen? Or the Lyric by Cadillac, right, owned by GM? Or the F-150 by Ford? Those are all very exciting, all very 21st century, and all very much competitors in the space. Another way to play the space, the electric vehicle space, is via the ETF, DRIV. That trades at $31 a share. It's up 34% year to date. It gives you exposure to electric autonomous vehicles, hybrid technology, autonomous driving, and network services. It's a one-stop shopping if you don't want to pick individual names. So it might be a good way at least to consider how to get in the space. Then on the political side, the talk was all about Joey's latest nominations to fill some key roles. Saul Omarova for OCC, a woman who supposedly has an impeccable Russian/Marxist education, who promotes the idea that we need to starve traditional fossil fuel companies to drive them into bankruptcy to take back control of the climate. I think it's a bit much, don't you think? There's a link to the story in my note. You can find it just by also searching the web as well. It's really kind of an amazing story when you see her videos, you see her talking about it. And what's interesting here is that the traditional fossil fuel energy companies are all pivoting to renewable energy, right? So think ExxonMobil and Chevron, during their earnings announcements, they just came out and announced this big pivot. So this woman appears to be a bit out of touch with what's going on kind of in the broader world, right? Companies are recognizing the need to pivot, and they are. And then there's this pick for the FCC chair, right? Gigi Sohn. And here you can find a Wall Street Journal story detailing her position of increased censorship on the airwaves, which is in direct contradiction to what her role is defined as. The FCC regulates interstate and international communications via cable, radio, TV, satellite, and wire. The goal of the FCC is to promote connectivity and ensure a robust and competitive market. Nowhere in there does it say anything about censorship. You can find that story in the Wall Street Journal as well. You can just Google it, Gigi Sohn, Wall Street Journal article, and you'll find it. It's really also amazing. And so it goes, right? So yesterday volumes, like I said, were a bit lower due to the holiday. And with little eco data today, I suspect that the markets are just going to really churn in line as the weeks end, right? U.S. futures are a bit higher this morning as the sun is rising over the Atlantic, but nothing so dramatic, right? Dow's up 90, the S&Ps are up 6, Nasdaq's up 33, the Russell's up 4. Johnson & Johnson just came out and announced that they are splitting the company into two separate companies in probably a year and a half, in what is known as unlocking value for shareholders. That news is still being released, so we're going to hear about that all day. The stock is quoted up 6 points in the early morning trade. Initial reaction is very positive on that story, so there is more to come for sure. European markets are mixed. UK and Spain are all low, while France, Germany, and Italy are a bit higher. A recent Reuters poll suggesting that investors expect Eurozone inflation to overshoot the European Central Bank's 2% target. Well, inflation there is already running at 4%, which appears to be overshooting the 2% target, but ECB policymaker Simkus expects it to back to the 2% target in 2023. FYI, that's at least 15 months away. So the key question here is what happens to Eurozone inflation between now and 15 months? The dollar index is up again this morning, trading at 95.17, up from 94.50 yesterday, well above all three trend lines, and appears to be breaking out of that recent high that I identified yesterday, right? Heading towards 98. And if that happens, then expect oil and other commodities to come under pressure as the dollar advances, right? And with energy demand rising and production falling, I would not expect oil to retreat very much at all. But listen, that's me. You have to watch what the dollar does. And oil, as expected, is down on that dollar strength, right? Trading at $79.95 a barrel, off about 2%. I'm still looking for support at $78.80, and I'm looking for trend line support at $77.18. Bitcoin is trading at $64,000, while Ethereum is trading at $4,600, really kind of churning in line. That didn't make a move dramatically either way, right? They're off just a tiny bit today, but nothing dramatic. The S&P ended the day at 46.49. Remember, the end of the year action is going to be driven by the inflation narrative, and if Jay Powell can continue to control that narrative, right, that inflation is not an issue. If that happens, then I think the market's going to find its footing, continue to churn slightly higher as we go into year end. Remember, you can text the word invest to 21,000 on your cell phone to get my digital business card. Feel free to download it, send me off an email, a text, give me a call. I'm always happy to engage and talk markets, talk concerns, talk planning, thoughts, ideas, whatever's on your mind. I'm always happy to talk about it. You can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Kenny Polcari, and get me on Instagram at KennyP1961. Okay, so now it's Thanksgiving. I'm kind of with this theme about what are we serving with the roast turkey. And it's all about the vegetables. Yesterday I gave you the stuffed Cuban peppers. Today we're going to do the classic mashed potatoes. They're just classic, but I add a little bit of shredded mutts at the end because why not, right? And I love mashed potatoes, especially during the holidays, because you get to mix them with the sauteed peas and onions and mushrooms. It's so good. Okay, so for this you're going to need, depending on how much you're going to make, but you need 5 large Idaho potatoes, peeled, cut, cubed, right? You need salt and half, and butter, and then you can dress them up, like I said, by adding some shredded mutts, right? So begin by bringing that large pot of salted water to a rolling boil. Add the potatoes, that you've chopped up and cubed. Boil them for about 20 minutes. You want them to be fork tender, right? Strain them, strain all the water out. Add the potatoes back to the pot. Add 1 stick of butter that you've sliced into pieces so it melts faster. A cup of warmed half and half. Mix well, allow it all to come together. Taste, season it if necessary, salt and pepper if you want. At this point now, I would add a handful of shredded mutts because the potatoes are still hot. And when you put in the shredded mutts and you mix it, the mutts will melt into the potatoes. It's so good. Now listen, you don't need to do that. That's just a little extra. If you like it, great. You don't like it, great. You want to add a different shredded cheese, maybe you want to add cheddar, shredded cheddar. But whatever it is, you should add shredded cheese so that the heat of the potatoes will melt the cheese, almost upon contact once you mix it. In either event, look, you can't really go wrong, right? Classic mashed potatoes. You put some shredded cheese in there. Not too much because you don't want to overpower it. But it's always good. And it always goes great with the roasted turkey, which we'll get to next week. In any event, listen, it's Friday. You can see the sun is coming up behind me. It's going to be a nice weekend here in Florida. I hope it's a nice weekend by where you are. Take good care, and I'll see you next week.